A really exciting week 4 of the college football season is officially over. We had some really fun matchups today, including what I think might go down as the game of the year in the big house between Michigan and USC. We'll talk all about that game, all about some of these prospects as we look into the stock report, the players and teams that went up and down. We'll take a look at my Heisman race. We got a new player entering the top 5 that probably should have been there all along. We're going to be talking about some of the big storylines of the week. This isn't a week like we've had previously where there's just so much to talk to. I think this is a pretty standard week. Not a lot of upsets. I think the big upset of the week is going to be that BYU just completely took the brakes off of Kansas State tonight. But other than that, pretty standard week. Florida State got their first win. We'll talk all about it in today's video. But if you guys are new to the channel, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Next weekend is going to be a super weekend. So if you guys are new around here, that is where we upload double the amount of prospect spotlights than we do on a typical weekend. So spent a lot of the morning getting some of the scripts ready for next week. Super excited about that. But let's go ahead and look into the first winner. And I know this is kind of a controversial one, but Miller Moss was, in my opinion, absolutely fantastic today. And I don't think it's going to show up on the box score because there were a lot of ups and downs in this game. But I think he was fantastic. I mentioned this was one of the best games I've seen all year. I truly think this could be the game of the year when it's all said and done. He was fantastic for the Trojans, just was leading them down the field, and his composure is what really stuck out to me. He threw some unbelievable dimes. I think he had a throw in the second quarter to one of the tight ends that he just threw the ball on a string. USC's offense struggled in the first quarter, but he really got it under control, made some really good reads, had good accuracy with the football. I thought he looked really impressive. But as I mentioned, it's the composure. The Michigan defense was everywhere in this game. I thought the defense was fantastic. He did throw a pick six to Will Johnson. He didn't have a perfect game by any means, but the fact that he continued to just stand in the pocket, take an ungodly amount of hits. His offensive line was pretty horrible today, and he just continued to sling it. USC had a chance to win this game, and the only reason I think they were alive was because Miller Moss was executing down the stretch. The defense had a really good day, but I know people are going to talk about Miller Moss had a down game because of the interception and stuff. I thought Miller Moss was fantastic, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that, but from what I saw, that was an NFL-level quarterback that we saw today, and it proved to me, that game proved USC does belong in the Big Ten. There was a lot of concern on how is their defense going to look against a more physical Big Ten, and I think Michigan answered today. They were fantastic, and Miller Moss, I think, had a really good day. First loser we're going to talk about are the North Carolina schools. NC State, I mean, I saw it from week 1 when they played West Carolina. I was like, okay, you're kind of letting this team hang around a little bit too much for a team that I thought was going to be in the ACC championship race. I was like, okay, we'll let that one slide. Then they get absolutely embarrassed by Tennessee. I was like, okay. I mean, Tennessee, one of the best football teams in all of college football right now. They're elite on both sides of the football. Not going to think too much of it. And then today, just getting embarrassed by Clemson. Clemson, I think, had 42 points at halftime. It was over as soon as the opening kickoff happened. I mean, Cade Klubnik, we'll get to him here in a minute, but he was great. NC State just has no momentum. They started a true freshman quarterback. Grayson McCall was out this game. The offense can't move the ball, and the defense is just getting sliced through like butter right now. They were terrible, and somehow they weren't even the worst team in their own state because North Carolina allowed James Madison to put up 70 on them. That's a game that we're going to look back on at this season. A 50-70 final score that you lose, it's just embarrassing. This defense couldn't stop anyone. Now, what I will say about NC State, I like what we saw from Bryson Nesbitt today on his touchdown. Had like a really good play, just continuing to fight through contact, trying to fight through, get extra yards, and he ended up scoring on the play. You love to see that, but two teams with relatively high expectations coming into the season, particularly NC State, We looked at the ACC and we were like, okay, it's pretty wide open. NC State's got a chance to win this thing. And unfortunately, they have looked really disappointing through the first 4 weeks. They're 2-2 now. And I think that the North Carolina schools had a really rough week. And they were two losers for me. We talked about Cade Klubnik, and this is a player that I want to put like as a sleeper Heisman pick right now. I know coming into the year I was lower on Clemson than the consensus. I get it. Clemson fans are going to be mad. I had them finishing 9-3, 4th or 5th in the ACC. Still very well could happen. Let's get that out of the way. The season's far from over, but from what I've seen from Cade Klubnik in the last 2 starts, he has been absolutely incredible, and he is showing some of the maturity that we wanted to see from him this year. App State, he absolutely lit that game up, was on point from the opening snap, and was pretty much perfect. Today, I think he was incredible as well against NC State. And I think particularly as a quarterback on the run is where you really feel like, okay, Klubnik has taken some strides from where he was last year. Opening drive, he has a 60-yard rushing touchdown, the longest for a Clemson quarterback since Trevor Lawrence did it in the Fiesta Bowl against Ohio State a few years ago. He showed the athleticism that he has, but the play that really stuck out to me was late in the first quarter. He escapes the pressure from NC State on the run, keeps his eyes downfield, finds Antonio Williams, absolutely perfectly thrown football. He looks more comfortable in the pocket. This offense is allowing some shots. He's showcasing the arm talent. This was a 5-star player. This is a player that they really trusted with their program. He's had some ups and downs, but I think Cade Klubnik looks like a potential really good quarterback for them right now. I know I was lower on Clemson, as I mentioned, but I was really, really impressed with what Cade Klubnik showed. Hopefully this can win me back some love from the Clemson faithful, but I thought Cade Klubnik was fantastic in each of the last 2 games, but particularly this one against NC State. You open up ACC play, and he absolutely lit it up. Another loser for me is going to be Oklahoma State, one of the weirdest teams in the country this year, and I've struggled with them all season long. They hadn't moved up or down since my preseason rankings. I'm like, okay, they're fine. I don't think they're anything special, but we'll look into them, and they just haven't been very impressive to me, so much so that they're not a top 25 team. And I know Oklahoma State fans are going to be like, how are we not a top 25 team? This offense is what we were signing up for. We were like, okay, this is going to be one of the more fun offenses in the league. You got Ollie Gordon, who we know was one of the most fun running backs in college football. And I'm not sure if there's an injury we don't know about, but Ollie Gordon, I'm just going to say it. I think he's been terrible this year. He had a couple of good plays in the Arkansas game in overtime. That was it. I mean, we really didn't see anything from him other than that. You look at what he had today. I believe he had 11 carries for 41 yards. His yards after contact has taken a massive hit this season. And this is a running back that people were putting Heisman bets on. And I was like, I mean, I think he's a good running back. I don't think he's this transcendent prospect like everyone else seems to think. And that's proven to be correct. I think the more time we see, like, there's a running back class that keeps getting better and better. I have Quinshawn Judkins and Ashton Genty above him. But, I mean, you could talk about Omarion Hampton being in there. Jonah Coleman's playing really good. RJ Harvey's playing good. And I think Ollie Gordon's starting to slip a little bit. But Alan Bowman was terrible today, just inaccuracy issues up and down the field. That I think they're really lacking a true winner deep down the field, and they're lacking a quarterback that can make those throws, to be quite honest with you. And I think their defense has been fine. Nicholas Martin has been a player that I've been pretty impressed with this year for the Cowboys, but just a team that I feel like has no identity. I don't think they can run the ball like they could last year. Their offensive line's not very good. And this is a team that I'm really concerned about because the schedule doesn't get any easier for them. And they just got absolutely embarrassed by a pretty good Utah team. I know it's Utah, but they are a team that did fall out of my top 25. And I got some concerns about Oklahoma State. Another winner for me is Kalel Mullings, who I think is now the clear-cut running back one for Michigan. He was fantastic for the Wolverines. Had two of their biggest plays of the day, including a 60-yard run late in the fourth quarter that helped put the Wolverines in scoring position. And I'm just glad I get to talk about this game twice in a positive note, because Michigan's offense was pretty horrible in the second half of this game. I think going up to that final drive, they had 6 total yards of offense. USC's defense was stifling in the second half. Mullings had a really good first half in this game, had a long touchdown, was really productive. And in the second half of this game, they kind of shut down the run. Michigan could only run the ball. They had 32 passing yards the entire game, and they finally get the ball to him, and he breaks one free and has a big game. He's got a weird build. He's like 220 pounds, a former linebacker converted to running back, but you see the explosiveness in the open field, which is something that's really exciting about him. The contact balance as well, the ability to just fight through tackles. There were probably 7 or 8 different Michigan players that I could have picked to be the player that I wanted to highlight in this game. Kenneth Grant was fantastic in this game. Mason Graham as well. Mason Graham, was against a good player in Jonah Monheim, who will probably be a day 2 pick, was just feasting in this game. That defensive tackle duo was everywhere. We talked about Will Johnson. He had the pick 6. He was incredible. Amir Hall was one of my guys coming into the year, transfer from Albany. He was fantastic. And then you get Josiah Stewart, who was out of this world in this game. It seemed like every other play he had a pressure, but I went with Mullings because this is an offense that was just horrible. He was the only piece. And now there's a lot of conversations. I think he's the number 1 running back for Michigan. Everyone thought it was going to be Donovan Edwards, but Mullings has really carved out a role these last 2 games. Michigan found an identity on the ground, and I think Mullins is a huge winner from this weekend. Another loser for me is the Missouri Tigers, and this is a weird situation because they were – I don't even know where to start with this team. They were like – you shouldn't have been in double overtime with Vanderbilt. Let's just get that out of the way. Now, they don't move up or down in my rankings, but this is the second straight week where I'm looking at Missouri, I'm like, okay, I've kind of got them in the corner of my eye. They could be on upset alert any week now. Brady Cook has so many inconsistencies at the quarterback position. I think he's a good athlete, but the inconsistencies are a little bit too scary for me right now. Coaching decisions in this game, really questionable. A 4th down at the end of the second quarter, they decide to go for it from their own territory. Don't get it. They get sacked and allow Vanderbilt to go up in this game. They end up narrowly winning this game because of a missed field goal by Vanderbilt. But a game that I don't think Missouri should have won. I thought their defense was good against the pass, had its struggles in the run game. Vanderbilt is a team that likes to run the football. And we talked about Brady Cook's inconsistencies, the coaching staff concerns. What I'm not really worried about is this run game. I really like the 1-2 punch that they've got. Marcus Carroll, everyone talked about being the big transfer back that they were going to have from Georgia State. Really good player. I was not really the biggest fan of his tape over the summer, and that remains true. Not really the biggest fan, but Nate Noel has been really, really solid for this team. Transfer from App State. He's been really good. There's some positives to take away from this Missouri game, but they were in a close one with Boston College, another close one with Vanderbilt. 2 okay opponents. When they play one of these really good SEC schools or a tougher opponent, I think Missouri could be on upset watch. So I think they were a slight loser from this weekend because they definitely showed some cracks in what up to this point has looked like a really, really solid team. Another winner for me is Maryland wide receiver Ty Felton, a player that admittedly I need to put the tape on. I really was a big fan of Caden Prather coming into the year. And from what I see, Felton looks like the better receiver of the 2. He's just so dynamic after the catch, making plays happen. He's very fluid as an athlete, has some really good athleticism to him, and he's shown it. He had, I want to say, 16 catches in this game. I could be wrong on that, but I think he had double-digit receptions in this game against Villanova. I mean, he was fantastic. I mean, one of these receivers that has just been so consistently dominant this year. You could talk about Ty Felton, Pat Bryant, two elite Big Ten receivers that look like they could be playing themselves into day two consideration. And then even like a guy like Nick Nash from San Jose State, he had a really good week. A lot to take away here, but Ty Felton, we talked about it, the yards after catch upside, had another touchdown. He's been so productive with incredible hands. I believe coming into the day, he had 0 drops. I mean, he's been fantastic, and he continues to catch my attention. A player that this upcoming week, I will be doing some film analysis on him because he is a very intriguing prospect and a big winner from the weekend yet again. Another loser for me, it's going to be James Pierce Jr. I watched this entire Tennessee game. As a Tennessee fan, you guys can see right there, really like this Tennessee defense. I think they're playing out of their minds. I think they're really good. James Pierce, I don't think he's having a bad year. I think he's actually producing pretty well compared to the consensus you'll see on Twitter. Everyone wants to look at sack numbers, which he hasn't really produced very many of, but that's kind of the concern I have. This is a guy that had 10 sacks last year. His quickness off the edge is still there. I mean, there were moments in this game where it's like, oh my gosh, this guy is still the freak athlete we thought he was. And he just didn't really finish the play. And that's kind of what concerns me. He had good looks. He had good angles to the quarterback and just wasn't able to wrap up. He's still my edge one. I don't have that changing right now. He's still really dominant in the reps that he has. But I'd like to see him finish some of these plays more because I do think it's holding him back from being the consensus edge one, which I definitely still believe he has the potential to do. Had a couple of good pressures, as I said, but want to see him wrap up against the quarterback a little bit better. But honestly, it doesn't even matter because the rest of this defense is playing so freaking good. This is one of the best defenses in college football, and I think the Vols are going to be a really, really, really difficult team to beat this season if they continue to play at this high of a level. Another winner for me is Ell Manor out of Stanford. I know a lot of people were kind of down on him coming into the week. I think I saw him. He's a consensus like 79th on the big board. What are we doing? He is a first-round caliber receiver. I think he's on that same like tier with like Isaiah Bond. They're very different type of receivers, but this is a receiver that we need more of in the NFL. These physical ball winners that are just the prototypical X. He was awesome in the game against Syracuse, had one of the catches of the year. He is a very good athlete with incredible hands. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. I think he's a really, really good player. And I think he is a solid lock to be a top 5 receiver taken in this draft class. I don't understand why people are down on him, but I am a big fan of Ell Manor and all the things he brings to the table. And he continues to, wow. I mean, he's been really good for a Stanford team that's been like kind of sneaky competitive in the ACC. Pulls off a big upset against Syracuse, a team that I was pretty high on. So I really love what we saw from Ell Manor, and he's a big winner from the week. Another loser for me is going to be Donovan Smith, a quarterback that a lot of people were really high on coming into the year. I mean, I saw him as high as a QB2 on some people's boards, and I never understood the hype. He's a really good athlete. I mean, he's really good on the run. He's got an absolute cannon attached to his right arm, but the accuracy is a major concern. And they played Cincinnati today, who's not a good Big 12 team. You should never get shut out by Cincinnati. And you shouldn't throw 2 interceptions. He had less than 100 yards and 2 interceptions in this game against a not great Cincinnati team. I picked Houston to win this game. Really disappointing stuff. And it's a guy that I get a lot of his weapons left. You look at Patrick Paul, his offensive lineman's gone. You lost Matthew Golden. You lost Sam Brown. But this is just not what we should be seeing. And I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if he does end up returning to college for another year, but entering the transfer portal, because Houston's not doing him any favors right now. And I think he looked like a complete and utter disaster today. So big loser for the week, and a player that I don't think I would take right now if I had a draft pick. I just don't think he's a draftable quarterback. I think he should go to school for another year. Another winner for the week is Mike Green. It's a player that I've seen a lot of people talk about a little bit as a potential sleeper in this draft class from a Sun Belt school. And he really played well against Ohio State. There's one rep that everyone's talked about, the rep against Josh Fryer. The way he won that rep with getting him to kind of bite to his inside pass rush move, and then how quickly he was able to spin out and just the quickness to get to the quarterback. Similar to Ty Felton, he's a player I haven't done a full in-depth analysis on, but if we're getting more of that, this is a top 10 edge rusher in this draft class and a player I would take in the second round. He's a really athletic player, has good length, good size, and really like what we've seen from him so far. Was kind of buried behind Elijah Allstott, who's now at Miami, but really intriguing pass rusher with a really high ceiling, I think. I think he was awesome against Ohio State. He was a big winner of the week. Another loser for me is Kansas State. I mean, you shouldn't get embarrassed by BYU like that. Just couldn't do anything. Avery Johnson was kind of a disaster in this game, 2 interceptions. And yeah, the defense couldn't really stop BYU. So that is definitely something I am a little bit concerned about. It's a game that Kansas State needed to win, I think, because the Big 12 is looking very competitive. You look at Colorado pulling off a miracle win. I'm not ready to write off Colorado just yet. Utah remains undefeated. You see Oklahoma State lose, a team that you were competing with. You got the tiebreaker over Arizona. I think this is kind of a must-win for you over a BYU team that's considered a lesser opponent, and they weren't able to pull it off. So definitely something I'm a little concerned about. They should have won this game, and I got Kansas State as a loser from the weekend. Another winner of the week is going to be Illinois quarterback Luke Altmaier. Illinois looks really, really good. The defense has been fantastic, the way they're able to generate their rush up front. The secondary is playing really good, particularly Xavier Scott. But I think we got to give credit to Luke Altmaier. We talk a lot about Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin, the tight ends looking really good, but Altmaier is playing really good football in his own right. He's got a really solid arm. He's been very accurate with the football. He's got some athleticism to make plays happen. Another player that I haven't done a full analysis on, wasn't really on my radar coming into the year, but Illinois is undefeated with a big game against Penn State next week that I think could be very massive for playoff implications. And if he continues to play the way he does, Penn State could be on upset alert. I'm not going to make any picks yet, but I do like what I've seen from Luke Altmaier, and a big winner of the week from me. Going out into the Heisman race, I think Cam Ward remains my number one Heisman candidate. Really, really good performance against USF. He had, I think, again, over 300 yards, had some touchdowns. I think there one pick in this game. You'll live with it, but Cam Ward's been awesome. Jalen Milroe is staying at 2. Really loved what we saw last week at Wisconsin. Didn't get to see him play this week, but still good performance. He's been really productive. And then the new player on campus is going to be Travis Hunter. With Quinn Ewers missing a game, kind of missed 2 straight games now. I have taken him out. I just don't think he's in my top 5 right now. And I got Travis Hunter in my top 3. A guy that you could argue could be at 1. I mean, he's been so good. That Colorado game, another contender for game of the year. What a finish in that one. A Hail Mary from Shedeur Sanders, absolutely thrown on a dime to LeJontay Wester, who makes an unbelievable grab, goes to overtime. Colorado goes in, scores the touchdown, and then Baylor looks like they're about to score, and an unbelievable forced fumble by Travis Hunter makes contact, head to the ball, forces a fumble out of the back of the end zone. Colorado fans storm the field. Just an excellent game. 7 receptions, 130 yards. He continues to do it on both sides of the ball. I don't think I've ever seen a player like him. If Colorado's above 500 in that bowl conversation, which it looks like they might be, they've won 3 of their first 4. They've been pretty good, I think. They looked really good against Baylor, particularly in the second half. We're down 2 touchdowns, pull off a really big comeback, outscore them 28-7 to finish this game. Really good finish from the Buffs. Travis Hunter is a winner for me. Miller Moss and Ashton Genty stay the same, even though Genty didn't really have a very productive game, 127 yards on 11 carries. It's a really great game, but if you want to be a Heisman, I want to see a little bit more. A couple of players that you could argue should be in the race. We talked about Quinn Ewers. Jackson Dart is like right at number 6. And then Nico Yamalieva, I know I butchered the name. That is a name that has just I'm struggling to get that name pronunciation right, but he's right there as well. I think the turnovers are a little bit concerning for me there, but really good stuff. Drew Allers looked really good. I mean, there's quite a bit of really interesting. We talked about Cade Klubnik, but this is my current top 5. That's obviously going to change throughout the college football season. Going into the teams that have dropped out of my top 25, and it's 3. Talked about Oklahoma State, Syracuse dropping a game to Stanford. They were kind of on the fringe for me anyways. Kyle McCord still looked good. Defense wasn't able to finish. And then Memphis, really, really tough loss against a Navy team that you probably should have won on the road, have a chance to win it. You're down 2 scores. You score a touchdown. You recover the onside kick, and then Seth Hennigan just throws a bad pass. Navy returns it for a touchdown, and Memphis falls out of my top 25. I had them as the 25th ranked team. So what does my top 25 look like? And there are quite a few new programs that have made it. Texas stays at number 1, and really my top 9 remains unfazed. We got Texas, Ohio State, who looked really good against Marshall. Quinshon Judkins is another player you could put in the Heisman conversation. He's a beast. Ole Miss beats Georgia Southern pretty handedly. Trey Harris has a really good game. Jackson Dart plays really well. Alabama didn't play today. You got a Miami team that looked like it could be a potential scare there early against USF, but they end up pulling off the win. Georgia, I'm lower on Georgia right now because that Kentucky game. Sue me. I got Georgia at 6, Tennessee at 7. I mean, they could be number 2, to be completely honest. This team is really, really good. I think their ability to rush the passer, stop the run, their secondary is playing great. The defense has been more impressive than the offense, which is something we haven't really been able to say in the Josh Heupel era. Penn State, really convincing win over Kent State. Offense looked great. Utah stays the same after a big win against Oklahoma State. And then Oregon, they jump up because of just a lot of movement. USC ends up falling. I don't have the down arrows on them, but USC did fall from this 10 spot down to number 13. I was impressed with the loss. I know that's a very a sentence that doesn't make any sense, but the run defense was really good in the second half. Their physicality. Michigan, they jump up from my number 20 to my number 12 spot just because I thought the defense was out of this world, and they showed a little bit of life offensively. We talked about Missouri already. Clemson, we talked about big win over NC State. They're back in the top 15. LSU jumps up. Iowa State. Iowa State's one of the most fun teams in the country, and I don't think a lot of people are really giving them the love that they should be getting. There's a really fun passing team with really good receivers, and Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins. Rocco Becht is playing well. They got a pretty good run game, and I like the Cyclones team. I got them at number 16. Louisville's up from number 18 to number 17 just because you had a couple of teams drop below them. Illinois jumps up from number 24 to number 18. Really good win against Nebraska, who does stay in my top 25 barely. I like this Nebraska team. The offensive line had its struggles, but I still am a fan of what Nebraska's shown. Notre Dame jumps up. Good win from them over Miami of Ohio. Outscored them 28-0 after looked like Miami of Ohio could have them on the ropes. Oklahoma drops. I'm not too worried about it. I'm worried about Jackson Arnold, just bad turnovers, decision-making in this game. But, yeah, I'm a little worried about them. I got them at 21. I think the team will be fine. I thought the defense was actually pretty good tonight. But they dropped. I think I had them at 15, dropped 6 spots. I don't think that's too out of the realm of possibility. And then 3 teams jumping back up into the top 25 is Texas A&M. They've looked really good for the last few weeks, like what we've seen from them. Indiana, kind of a sleeper in the Big Ten right now. I think they're playing really good football. The coaching change, Cignetti, the offense has been electric this season, and I think their defense is playing really tough as well. They jump in at number 23. I think we got to put some respect on the Hoosiers right now. And then UCF, really solid team. I think they're looking pretty good. They're undefeated right now. Run attack is one of the most dynamic in college football. KJ Jefferson, RJ Harvey, and Penny Boone. But Kobe Hudson, I turned on his tape the other day. That dude I like him more than I like Javon Baker last year. So yeah, that's my new top 25. UNLV was my number 26 team. They were kind of right on the cusp here, but yeah, that's going to do it for me, guys. Let me know, what do you guys think? Who is in your top 25? Which players or teams impressed you the most? Leave a like, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.